It's now the end of the 12 o'clock turn, and the French have been launching assaults throughout their line. And the Spanish raw infantry just has not been able to put up any fight at all. You can see a big group of routed Spanish infantry units behind the line. Most of those are those raw infantry, but there are a few of the regular Spanish infantry as well. They have had the Spanish have had a few small successes. Another routed French unit out on the left, and there have been a few small places where they've been able to hold their ground. You can see out on the left, the French right, the Spanish left. They're doing pretty well to hold. They withstood some assaults here and disordered some of these French. This unit here held its ground, and another unit out there. But all along the front here, most of the French assaults were pretty successful. So the French pushing very hard, and behind the lines the British 4th Division has arrived, and I've just bumped them a little bit, but they have begun to form up behind the lines, but they're not as strong as I kind of had hoped. The speed at which the Spanish raw infantry has deteriorated and fled the field has got me a bit worried that the 4th Division may not be enough, and I think I'm certainly going to have to bring in some of the 2nd Division troops from along the Rio Albuera. The Portuguese have begun to cross the river and are finding some fords, but it's they've got a long way to go, and it's hard to activate them. This is really just a distraction. I thought I'd see if they could hit the French elsewhere. The Portuguese moving to join up with the 4th Division. It's too hard to activate them out there. So Beresford is moving with the 4th Division to keep them activated as an entire division, and it's too hard to activate the Portuguese out on the right. Very soon I think I'm going to have to start pulling some of these British away from the Rio Albuera to help out on the sort of allied right flank. The French, have not set up their artillery yet. Again, made the mistake of pulling them at the back of the lines. It's considerable artillery, and if they can get them set up somewhere, they'd be very effective. It's just a case of when and where. Maybe it would have been better to set them up along the Rio Albuera and just to harass those British, as I think they did historically. But anyway, that's all this French artillery in the centre here. French cavalry still very fresh. I don't think they've suffered any casualties at all. They've been exhausted and disordered, and they've all recovered, but don't think they've suffered any hits throughout those lines. So that's the situation. That's the end of the 12 o'clock turn. The French hitting very hard against those Spanish lines, and the Spanish simply unable to put up much of a fight. All right, it's the end of the 12:20 turn, but a very quiet turn. Not much happened. We had torrential rain throughout the turn, so there was no fire, there were no cavalry charges, and movement was 1/3, I think, of normal. So there's not much that can really happen. No fire in the middle here. The French decided to use this opportunity just to pull back and regroup, try to recover order, which I haven't rolled for yet. That'll happen in a moment. And I haven't done the routes at the back here of the Spanish. But what's happening is more 4th Division, British 4th Division troops are moving up. You can see they deployed here last turn in the middle. Portuguese moving out on the right. The Spanish holding pretty well here. Again, nothing happened here. The British are pulling back from the Rio Albuera. And you can see part of the 2nd Division there is going to shift around as the Portuguese very slowly cross the Rio Albuera down there in the northeast. That was about it. Very quiet turn. Again, more of those Portuguese cavalry and infantry shifting out behind Albuera to the west. But mostly a quite inactive, rain-soaked turn. Okay, the end of the 12:40 p.m. turn, and the French are taking a cautious approach here, reorganising their lines and moving up their artillery. I think we might set up this artillery first before we begin to launch an assault on those slightly stronger Spanish lines, now joined by members of the 4th Division there. There were a few assaults out on the right, but for the first time, I think some of these Spanish raw infantry held their ground. Yes, they were disordered, but they stopped the attackers and managed to disorder some of those as well. That was just one unit. Elsewhere, a bit of a mess behind the lines. These are some of the recovered units making their way back to the front. More 4th Division around here, and these British, as I said, are beginning to move around. This is 2nd Division British trying to help out in this area, as the French haven't moved at all out here in the east. A few good recovery rolls from the Spanish out in the background there. Some of those routed units rolling very well to recover, and they'll gradually make their way back to the fight. There was more French cavalry action out here. They've crossed that Arroyo de Valdesevilla and are threatening the far right of this Spanish line, that Spanish cavalry out there. So there you go. Pretty quiet turn. There was fog this turn, so the rains have ceased and movement is back to normal again. But the French, as I said, just playing cautiously and getting their lines prepared, recovering order mainly in a lot of their units around here, so they can launch some strong assaults on that renewed Spanish-British line. So this brings us to, it's just about 1 p.m.